Hey pioneers, and welcome back. On our last video we built an amazing control room. We handled all of the power connections through a weird blueprint, packaged some water, it's nice to have something to drink, and finalized our first district in the desert. Aluminum is online.
So my idea was doing a factory that creates supercomputers and radio control units. I honestly don't know how much I'm going to need of each one, so I started by 10. And I was a little bit scared by this monster. We need 540 quartz crystal, almost 1000 iron ingots, 751 copper ingots, 600 silica, 260 caterium ingots, and 280 plastic, which is quite a lot. And then if we go to my spreadsheet, that's in my GitHub repo, these are materials we are already doing in our world. I'm already doing 2000 iron ingots, 1000 copper ingots. I have 2 factories doing plastic, 58 over here and 348 over here. I mean, I have all of these materials. The only thing is that they're being crafted on the other end of the world. But if I took the time and effort and I'm wasting power to create all of this crap I'm currently not using, I thought that it didn't make much sense recrafting them on the desert. So I will be focusing on bringing every piece of material I crafted throughout all of my world to the desert. And yes, you could do that with conveyor belts, it's what I've been doing so far. But I think it's time to upgrade my game and move to trains. To be honest, I'm afraid of trains. I've never used them in my life because I'm a perfectionist when regarding logistic. Every machine works at 100% in my world, and if you connect something to a belt, you know that whatever you are connecting on one side, you get it on the other. With trains, it's not that straightforward, so I've been avoiding them. But I know that you can also get full efficiency on trains, so well, it's time to learn. Let's go and build some trains. So first thing to do is coming up with a blueprint to be able to build everything faster. I've made this one, railway support. You will be able to find it in my repo. That well is just a fancy way with a lot of signs to be able to carry our trains. It already has 5 power grids connected to it, so if you like doing weird stuff with electricity, you can. You would be able to carry 5 plus the rail itself, because the rail carries power. And then if you need to go on an incline, you can simply cut this slice and place a 2-meter ramp. And it won't be touching the roof because the height is calculated. So yeah, I think it's pretty useful. Bad thing about it, it requires 462 quartz crystals. So it's 2 minutes of waiting every time you plop one, assuming you have one-dimensional depot connecting to your quartz. And I guess that I could maybe do an adapter, something so that I can take my trains on top of my current rail. I mean, I would have to raise it and connect it a fancy way, but I think this might look pretty good. But well, first step is done. Now we need to start placing tons of these all over the world.
So after a couple of hours of work, this became into this. We have some trains. I'm loving how it's looking. It has kind of a futuristic vibe. Anyway, I still haven't done the whole network. I first want to plop some stations and figure out if this actually works and if I can get all of the throughput without any dips.
So let's start setting this up. I made my first division, making sure that it won't clip. I don't want any accidents. So here I will be placing my first train station ever. We are between the turbo fuel factory and this factory that produces rubber and plastic, and well, the idea is to transport those. This factory over here is producing 467 rubber and 348 plastic. I mean, it's producing more, those are the ones I'm not using. And that factory over there is also producing 58 plastic. So I will be merging that plastic with this one, and in the end we will have 2 belts that we have to transport. Now, I don't know exactly how this works, but I'm supposing that we could make 4 freight stations, 2 for each material. So yeah, the train will be transporting a lot of materials. I'd rather have that than a lot of trains carrying little. So well, let's start by placing a station over here. And here we have our first approach. We have the 4 freight stations. The train station, that I actually don't know if it has to be on that side and that one, but well, we'll find out. As I live in Sydney, I'm doing something that might annoy most people, but I'm going for left-handed drive direction. How do you say that? But well, the trains will advance on the left, not on the right, because that's how car drives over here. And in order to do this, I had to do yet another blueprint. That is the same support as before, but only for 1 train track. So we have the baby little brother. Now let's get some logistics going. And here we go. Check that beautiful train station. So what have I done? I have no experience with this, so maybe it's wrong, but I think I came up with a good solution. For starters, each of these platforms has an own industrial storage container. This is meant as a buffer to increase the buffer of the train station. We don't know how frequently our trains will be arriving, but all of my factories are overflow protected, meaning if at any time we can't send materials, they will be sent to a sink that's inside the factory. And I'm going for 100% throughput. I want to send everything. So by leaving these buffers over here, I just have more time and trains can come less frequently, and it should work. Now another thing to note is that each one of these buffers has only 1 input, but it has the 2 outputs connected. I've read that when the train is loading or unloading, all of the conveyor belts stop, and this might bring issues, but by doing that, we make sure that the speed in which we are loading the train station will be double the speed which the materials arrive. So sooner or later it should be able to deliver everything, no matter how much time the belts remain stopped. And then finally, how am I bringing these materials? This is done via smart splitters. Each material has 1, and I'm sending the overflow to the train station. What does this mean? I will be able to send all of my materials to the desert, but what happens if I need some of them right here, for example to upgrade a factory? Well, I will still be able to take any amount of materials I want for the factories that are on this side of the world, and only the ones that I'm not using will be sent to the train. That way I still have access to the materials in both sides, where they are created and on the desert. So I think that might be handy. Okay, now I need to build another one of these, but in the desert. Let's go. And here we have it. Same train station built in the desert, and I followed the same practice. We have 1 industrial storage container per each platform, each one of them connected with 2 belts, but I'm only taking 1 out of them. And in this case I'm remerging these 2 and I'm remerging these 2. And for the time being they will be sent to a sink until I figure out what I want to do and how I want to do it. But we now face a big issue, and that's power. This already requires half a gigawatt, and I don't have that amount of power. We can check over here how my grid is holding. Yeah, we are using basically all of it. Now it's night when it's day. When it becomes night, all of the lights turn on, and I will be closer to my max consumption. And another thing to note is that this power graph is beautiful. It's constant, and trains don't consume a constant amount of power, and I don't want to ruin that. So how do we power this without having power and without ruining my stable connection? I was thinking of using geothermal generators. I haven't plopped a single one in my world because I like stable stuff, but if I'm going to be creating a separate power grid that will have machines that consume a non-stable amount of power, we can power it up with non-stable generators. So I will be running throughout all of my world, connecting all of the jasers I can find. Let's get a little bit geeky about these guys. As you might know, they give a variable amount of power that is actually a triangle shape. So for example, we can see that this one is giving us from 100 to 300, meaning 200 in average. And this one is giving us from 150 to 50, 100 in average. But even though this gives us 100 megawatts in average, can you connect a machine that consumes 100 megawatts? No, you can't, because when you're below the average, the fuses will blow, and when you are above the average, you will have more energy than you need. So how do you fix this? With power storage. But how do you calculate it? Can you calculate it? Well, lucky for us, this is a triangle shape, so if you do an integral, how do you say this in English? But if you integrate over time, you can get exactly what the average is and how much power you need to store. I already did the math, there's no need to go over that, but the exact formula is this one I'm showing, Pmax minus Pmin divided by 4, where Pmax is the most amount of power we have and Pmin is the least amount of power we have. So for our example, it would be 300 plus 150 minus 100 plus 50 divided by 4. This means that we need to place 75 megawatts hours of power storage, and this will behave as if it was a completely stable power source. Now, each power storage gives us 100, so only placing one battery will be enough for these two guys. So I will be doing that math to make sure that even though we have a weird shape, it will behave as if it was constant. Batteries will be charging every time we are above average and will be discharging every time we are below the average, and the system will be safe. So, some time has passed and I connected a lot of generators. I'm going between 3.5 gigawatts and 2.7, so that would be like 3.2 gigawatts. And I think that we might be on the limit, because if one station ended up consuming half a gigawatt, this is one, then we need iron, we need copper, we need cadmium, we need steel, and raw quartz and silica. Those are 5 stations. So we would go from half a gigawatt to 3 gigawatts. And then you also have to take into consideration the consumption of the trains. So I might need to connect some more geothermal generators. I didn't connect every single one in the map. I've got most of them, but only the ones that were kind of nearby to my railway network. So well, we'll see how it goes. I want to just try trains and see if this works. So let's build us a train. Okay, so I don't know much about this. We are experimenting, but I set it up so that it doesn't stay here for long. It just wants to load once. And I made ore wait 100 seconds because it will load once before that. Or should I leave this? How much does a load time take? I think it was 28 seconds, so let's make 28. I just want it to load wherever it has available and then leave. But on the other side, on the other end, I want it to unload everything it has. So that's why I place a high number over here. This might be all crap, because I don't know about the subject, but I think it makes sense. So now I suppose I have to set changes and turn it on. Is that all? Hey, it's moving! Why did I wait so much to play with trains? This sounds amazing. Oh, and I made it blue because plastic is blue. I want to kind of color code them. I'm really excited. Probably this for most of players is like, huh, dude, that's a train. What are you showing us this? Why do I see those red lines? Oh, that clears it. And off it goes! Wow, this is amazing. So, to fine-tune it, what do we expect? All of these containers started absolutely full. And we want to have more trains than we actually need, just in case there's a jam or one train stops the other. I don't want to calculate it so that it has to be moving 100% of the time. So basically we want this container to eventually get empty. So once the train comes back, I will check how much we have, and if we have a considerable amount less than a full container, it means that we are capable of transporting more than we have, and that's what I'm going for. In order to have 100% throughput, this buffer should never get to being completely full. So we'll see how it goes. Where is our train now? Hehe, there he goes. Oh, this is so much fun. Yes, I've been staying here just waiting for the train. But in the meantime, I wanted to check the consumption, and this surprised me. This that we are seeing right now, 20 megawatts, 30 megawatts, this is only the consumption of the train. Meaning the train stations probably only consume power when they are actually loading and unloading. And that's excellent, because we can sustain that with our power storage. Meaning we might be done with this power production. I might not need more, because it's only a short amount of time we are loading and unloading. So the batteries will take care of that. It seems like so far everything is going right. Choo choo! Hey, look who is back! My first train has just completed one loop. And now the important thing, I should have been closer to the containers, is to see how we are doing. And yes, they are pretty empty. That means they are like at 50%, that we can transport 50 more of what I expect to transport. So I think that only one train is safe. Unless my railways get absolutely cramped with trains, that I don't know if it will be the case. It feels like one train is all that we needed. So now I'll be using my new acquired knowledge and build a lot more train stations. This is so much fun. So this is the other end that I needed to check. And we can see that these containers are already empty and these ones are getting empty, and the train is just coming. So yeah, we basically can deal with everything that's being sent. So I think that this means that I managed a 100% throughput. Everything that I'm trying to send is being sent. We are sending more than we have, and we are able to handle all of the product. Because even though right now I have sinks on this side, when I actually use these materials, there will be a priority, a smart splitter that will be sending the overflow to sinks and the rest to wherever uses it. So I think that, yes, this was a success, and you have no idea how happy I am with it. I was really scared about trains, but they were extremely easy to set up, and it was actually fun. And now that I've set up all of this infrastructure, adding 2, 3, 4, 5 more trains, it's going to be a piece of cake. So Nico is happy. So in order to prepare this network to carry several trains, I need to start playing with the signals. Annoying stuff, but well, I'm placing one between each of my blueprints. All of my blueprints are at a fixed size, so if I kind of do it in the middle, it should be okay. And maybe I'm placing more than I should. But well, what's the worst that could happen? Well, let's talk about iron ingots, because I had to do some different things over here. I'm starting the same way as before, with a smart splitter, so any ingot I'm not using on this side of the map, it will be taken this way to my train station. But before that, we have this segment over here. What is this? This is a load balancer, because I'm coming with 5 belts and each one of them have a different amount of materials. So all of this ends up distributing all of those ingots evenly. So now it doesn't matter at what speed those ingots come, they will be evenly distributed in 4 belts that go to my train station. How do you achieve this? Well, as I want 4 outputs, each of your input belts, you need to divide it by 4. We have 1, 2, 3, and 4. Here we see the other one also divided by 4, the other one divided by 4, and so on. And then on your outputs, you have to merge one belt of each. So on this output, I will be grabbing one from there, one from there, one from there, one from there, and one from there. And I ran out of electricity. In order to make this easier, I simply played with the height. So we can see that my 4 divisions, this one is on the floor, this one is barely higher with a compact lift, this one is pretty much higher, and this one is the highest of all. So as they are in different heights, you can simply connect it to the merger, and there will be no clipping nor issues. So yeah, that's what I did, and you end up having 4 containers that will always have the exact same amount of ingots. In order to deliver all of this payload, I'm now using 2 trains. 1 train wasn't enough, and with 2 trains I have more than I need. But now let's go to the desert, because I also made something weird over there. So this is the station in the desert, and I added this over here. So let's start breaking it down. Right now I'm receiving 1999.848 iron ingots. That's what I'm not using and what the train is bringing me. And that's evenly distributed among the 4 platforms, meaning each one of us gives us roughly 500. But now, what's the deal? If I want to use a little bit iron on the other side of the map, for example, I start using 100, the 4 stations will reduce their output to 474. And this is neither practical nor safe. I don't want to use a little bit of iron on the other side of the map and over here have a factory that shuts down. So I had to rearrange a little bit the outputs. What we are seeing here, these are 2 belt compressors.
And the end result is 3 belts where that belt and that belt are always full with 780 non-stop. So if we do this minus 780 and minus 780, the remaining 439 would be on this belt. Yeah, and I know what you might think, Nico, you're crazy, the 3 belts are full. Yeah, but that's because of the setup. I couldn't do it any better. Here we have the exact number I said, 440, but the thing is that it works in batches. When it's on, it will be giving 780, and every now and then it will completely shut off. So the average is exactly the number I wanted, but yeah, it's a bursty system. It should be probably close to stopping right now. Yes, we'll see that in a couple of seconds. There we go. So all in all, we have 480, but it behaves a weird way. And by doing that, if in the future I start using iron ingots on the other side of the world, this belt will still be full, this belt will still be full, and we will only be decreasing the amount of ingots on this one. So, yep, I started with 5 belts with different numbers, and I ended up with 2 completely saturated belts and 1 that has the rest. I feel like this is safer to use and more comfortable. So now that I learned about trains, I will do all of the other stations and bring all of the other materials in one go. And then decorate a little bit, of course. These sinks won't stay there. I need to make something cooler. So let's go! And we are done. The 6 train stations are finished. And you might be wondering, where are them? I did the 6 train stations over here, managed all of the outputs, made sure everything worked, and then realized it was kind of ugly because I was adding train stations without planning. So I mass dismantled everything. And I built it a tidy way over here in the side. Here we have the 6 train stations, one next to one another, and all of the output management is done over here. I think it looks way cooler. Of course, each one of them is different because they depend on the amount of materials I'm actually sending. So let's do a brief showcase of them. Let's see copper, for example. We start by these 4 industrial containers. These are the ones that I usually place right next to the station, but I thought it would look cooler to have a lot of belts. So it's the same thing, only that in a different place. And it ended up giving this belt vibe that I really enjoy. So after these industrial containers, we've got this module and this module over here. These are the belt compressors, exactly the same as I explained before for the iron ingots, but I did add a new thing, that is these storage containers for the 3 outputs. And what are them? This is a problem I suspected I might end up having, because for example over here, what do we have? We have 2 compressed belts that each of them give us 780 per minute, and the remaining belt, the uncompressed one, that gives us 342.356. Now, what are these percentages? These percentages describe how the materials arrive. Because even though I'm having 342, if we check it right now, it would be this belt. It has nothing at all. Because of the trains, the materials come in bursts. They will be always moving at 780 per minute, but 43% of the time the belt will be absolutely filled up and the rest of the time it will be empty. That might be dangerous, because let's assume I connect this guy to a factory and that factory requires 342 copper ingots per minute. Around 60% of the time it won't be receiving anything,
and 43% of the time it will be receiving way more than it needs. The average will still be the same, but what might happen? During this 43% of the time, the material is going to start to pile up all over my rail, pile up all over the belt, pile up over here, and if it gets to the smart splitter that handles the overflow, it will be sent to the sink. So I would end up sinking materials that I'm expecting to use. But the issue is that it came all of a sudden and I wasn't able to manage it. So that's why I'm placing some storage containers. These are to, handle the burst. When I'm receiving more than I can handle, the idea is to stockpile it here, and it should never reach these smart splitters that handle the overflow. Of course, to be honest, the compressed belts don't need an industrial storage container, a storage container in this case. So those two wouldn't be necessary. But just for the sake of symmetry, every single output has a container. Here we have another case, 252 Caterium ingots, but they arrive at high speed, so 32% of the time this belt will be saturated, like now, going at 780. And yes, I continued that procedure and everything is working, and I'm really happy with the result. And I also added some lights, not that many. Let me do some magic. There we go. There are just lights on the pillars. And I started using them. As you can see over there, there's some copper ingots that are being used. The first factory fed by trained delivered materials. And this is on my aluminum factory. I was already bringing copper through a belt all from the other side of the world. So once I set up all, I dismantled that belt and took it from the train station.
And with that, we wrap up today's video. A lot of work has been done and the world is completely different than before. So, some takeaways. I was terrified about trains, avoided them for a long time, but to be honest, I found them to be extremely fun, and it was way easier than I imagined to set up. Now, way easier doesn't mean that it was easy. Before starting, I made a lot of research to understand how they work, how I should do the logistics, because I didn't want to start a massive project and have to dismantle everything and do it a different way. So yeah, there was some research involved, but in the end I did it in my first attempt and I managed the 100% throughput. That was what I was expecting and thought it was impossible to do. So don't be a coward like Nico, don't be afraid of trying new stuff. I should have been playing with trains for a long time. But well, from now on we will be playing this way and it's really fun, to be honest. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please remember to leave a thumbs up or a comment. Not only it makes me happy, it helps grow the channel. We could always use some more viewers. And even if you don't have anything to comment, let's give a topic to discuss. Do you use trains? And if you do, when did you start using trains? Were you a coward like me that started using them at the end of the game? Or were you brave enough to start using trains the moment you had them? It took a long time for me, and I shouldn't have done that. But well, now I learned and I'm happy with the result. I hope you guys have an amazing week, and I'll see you on the next one.